I'm Graham Davies, the founder of Edition Finance. I've been doing this for sort of 20 years in lots of different sort of finance roles, and later became fractional CFO, and now 6 years ago, 6 years ago, really started Edition, which is kind of a finance platform for startups and SMEs to automate their accounting, but importantly, give them the customer experience that's been missing for years and make that really slick and making it very easy to manage your finances. And of course, AI is helping us with that too massively. But it'd be great for you to give us a quick 60-second intro breakdown into Senis AI, what you're doing, and even a bit about you as well, Marco, would be fantastic. And what problem you're
Yeah.
solving for customers.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to cover in 60 seconds. I'll do
Well,
my
it's
best.
going to be a bit longer. Yeah.
I've never managed, an under 60-second pitch in my life, but we'll give it a go. So, I mean, I'm actually creeping up to that 20-year mark as well. So I'm looking forward to that moment where I can say I've been in the space for 20 years. But for now, it's like, 16, 17 years. And so my professional background has been in business analysis, product management. So essentially being
Great.
the guy that just sits in between the folks that use technology and the folks that are smart enough to develop the technology. So my role at Stennis is not that dissimilar. So I'm the individual that has a conversation with our customers, prospective buyers, and then look to bring those requirements into the organization. So Stennis AI, the problems that it solves are clarity around customers of the organizations that we solve. So we're talking sort of behavior patterns, what's the right messaging type, what's the right sort of services or products that should be launched based on past behavioral trends within the organization. And we do that by using AI to analyze data. And I've always been very, very excited and passionate about helping people find a way to work smarter, easier. To like the moment where folks see, oh wow, there's an easier way to do this grueling work. It's like that's the stuff that gets me excited. So I was like, well, how do we introduce then this AI into business operations so that people can, have a better time at work. So that was the like
The
unhatched kind of idea back in.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it's working by the sounds of it. Actually, that's fantastic, isn't it? So it's a business that's been 100% enabled by that transformation, which is really exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're only at the beginning of it too, aren't we? I mean, it's gonna. I mean, what this is going to look like in 5 years' time is quite ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think in terms of 5 years, to be honest. I
Yeah,
mean,
or
five
less.
years, the word will be completely unrecognizable. It's
Yeah,
more about what do the next 6 months look like? That's the big thing. Because, I mean, the output and processing power of these agents is like it's just growing exponentially.
yeah,
So, the sort of the standard input output relationship that we used to have with ChatGPT when it first came out, like the bottleneck there was your ability as the user to communicate back to the AI, and of course, you sort of waiting for the response to come back, right?
yeah.
Well, now you send a series of instructions, and then a team of agents spawn, communicate with each other, each go off and do separate tasks, and then come back with the results. You know, like I mean, for example, like last week, I comfortably did about 2 weeks worth of work in about 3 days, and that's just it's getting faster.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Incredible. Yeah,
yeah,
across the board. Even the same. It's the same in finance, same in accounting. Like tasks that used to take a human, let's say a day, is now kind of instant. Crazy. And same when it comes to financial reporting and creating. Even when we're advising, we have our own sort of closed off version of OpenAI, but we can run a report. We can give some real insight. Write a paper for a board, which used to take iteration after iteration, days. Now it's like, well, I can do that in half an hour probably, max, and it's
yeah.
ready to go. It's amazing, and I mean, of course, the conversation is: do we replace people's jobs or not? I think obviously there'll be an element of that, right? There definitely will be a bit of displacement there, but more than that, it's just going to make people like superhuman in their roles, isn't it? And it's like you just become so much better at it if you know how to use AI. It doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah.
you're out of the job.
Well, look, I mean, a year or so ago, the conversations that I was having were a lot more delicate. It was like, well, you really should be taking a look at this stuff, otherwise it's going to get away from you. I mean, my mum used to work in a post office, and she used to use a typewriter. And then when the computers came in, she said, "No, not doing it. I'm not playing around with these whatever these things are." So she retired early because she didn't want to have anything to do with computers. So that is always an option for folks. But just like computers didn't go away, I mean AI it's on a different level. Upskilling in this technology is what's going to separate you from your competition, because ultimately you're competing against the same version of you that either knows more about AI or knows less about AI.
Yeah,
That's who you're competing against. And I've been having a lot of uncomfortable conversations with folks that are asking, look, Mark, you're closer to AI than I am. Like, what does this kind of mean for us? And I said, it's just like learn how to use the technology and learn immediately.
yeah.
Um, and well,
Don't
because
be a victim.
yeah, don't be a victim of it, because that I know, and I've spoken to a lot of leaders, and they are thinking of cuts because of course, then otherwise they can't remain competitive. The thing that are keeping leaders up at night is reduction in revenue, because customers might be trying to do sort of DIY legal work, DIY financial work, right? Because that technology is so democratized, they can use it in order to do things that would traditionally require specialist skill. So there's considerable revenue pressure from a lot of organizations, and they're then thinking, well, in order for me to stay competitive, we have to reduce costs. And
Yeah,
that's
it
that's
is
important.
happening, isn't it? It's unfortunate, but it's how it goes with technology, isn't it? It's just how it's always been, unfortunately. But it is what it is. Um, Getting into sort of financial strategy a bit, Mark, it'd be really great to understand from you, how have you managed to get to this point today? How have you funded the business? You
Painfully.
bootstrap? Did you raise money? What did that look like?
No, I mean we funded it painfully.
Really?
That's which I think the technical term is we
Yeah.
bootstrapped. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, great stuff.
So it was, yeah, it's funny. I mean, for a good few months, like actually, well into sort of past a year, it felt like we were flying a plane, trying to build it whilst we were flying it,
Yeah,
and it feels like that a lot. Well, even today, there'll be moments where, okay, right, we're okay, everything's good, and then bang, it's like, oh, well, I didn't see that, and
yeah,
let's call it the sort of the excitement of running a startup, right?
absolutely.
But to answer your question in terms of specifics, yeah, it was fully funded. At the time, we've raised a little bit of capital, and we now have from our strategic advisor, so he's come on. But it was sort of beer money,
Yeah,
just
sure.
trying to get a little capital in.
A bootstrap, really bootstrap then, I guess, to some extent. Like no,
Oh,
there's no, yeah, no VC involved or anything like that.
no, not yet.
Which makes it tough, doesn't it? I think building technology, although building technology now is far more, like you said, democratized or easier, less capital intensive than it was
Yeah.
before AI, before the evolution of AI, because it just makes everything so much easier.
And,
But still, it's tough. I mean, regardless of that, you still have to figure out a way of acquiring customers, getting product market fit, all on your own dime, which
well,
I'm very pro, to be honest with you. I'm quite pro bootstrapping it to a certain extent,
yeah,
because I think it makes you very effective.
yeah.
I mean, you really are going to have to solve a customer problem. You're really going to have to get proper product market fit, not selling £20 notes for £10. You're going to have to really get product market fit, right? So,
We tried that; it didn't work, unfortunately. That was our first product, actually.
£20 notes for a tenner. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, it
Too
did
good
go
to be
well.
true. I think
Yeah,
that's probably what they thought.
But I'm glad that you're mentioning it is certainly easier now to develop technology than it was, let's say, a year ago. And there has been this notion for a while that, anybody that has a pulse can go in and just, press a button, and then, the agents will just go ahead and build the thing. So I was having a conversation with our developer and co-founder John, and he said, yeah, he hasn't coded anything for about 6 months. Um, so I
Wow.
quickly checked GitHub just to make sure that he had actually produced some work in the last 6 months, and it just turned out that he meant that the agents were producing it for him. Now, interestingly, he said 6 months. He didn't say 18 months or 24 months.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because previously it wasn't as easy to produce good quality code as it is today. Like today, I mean, I've built out in kind of my spare time a couple of applications just kind of from scratch, and it's like each of those applications took me a total of, I want to say sort of 9, 10 hours, maybe even 7. And so these are sort of experimental products that we're looking at playing around with. And actually, I could mention that now because we started having that conversation right at the beginning. So
Yeah.
we we when we decided on our niche and our sort of ideal customer, we were thinking about in terms of providing that sort of clarity for associations that are like on their members, or i.e. their customers, right? And what that looks like in principle is they just have a conversation in chat with the data. But what's materially changed is the technology, and that means that it's no longer just a sort of a chat with
Yes.
with your PDF or with your database, or just have a chat for the sake of having a chat. It's a case of spawning a team of multiple agents just through natural language, and so essentially operating as an orchestrator and having them run, analysis iteratively, potentially, building, testing frameworks, improving the code, like it's all on the fly. A lot of the work that I do now is just staring at the screen. And I never get tired of, by the way, watching agents work. It's amazing. I could do it all day.
I like watching a little army of agents going out and just doing work for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're playing with. That's the idea that we're playing with. So that way we're not just introducing member insights into associations and the tools to get those insights, but we're introducing teams of agents within your organization
Yeah.
to handle kind of,
Amazing.
connectivity, interoperability with like emails, file systems, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Great. And do you think the fact that you're bootstrapped is slowing you down or not? Like, would you ideally like to raise some money? Have you looked to raise money? What does that strategy look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily slowed us down. If we did a reasonably sized raise, like it wouldn't be immediately clear where the
Like,
money will be deployed,
yeah.
right? So I can't remember what the rule is called, but it's like, if you have a week to do a piece of work, then you will take a week to do it. So it's almost like if you have X amount of money in the bank, then you'll find a way to spend that X amount of
Exactly.
money. But I mean, at the moment, we're running, really, really lean, and we're getting clients in, and at this stage, it's self-sustaining. But we're always talking to investors, and with investors, it's you build that relationship over time, right? So these investors that we spoke to a year and a half ago, we have catch-ups with them every sort of 6 months, and
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, but you're right. I think that's right. And I think it's Parkinson's law, that rule, isn't it? So I've got a feeling like the work fills up the time
your
available.
memories, yeah, much better than mine. I'm
But
glad.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it's the same when it comes to raising money, doesn't it? It's like, you're right. Unless you've got a real strong case for raising and for how that money is going to be deployed, I mean, it's advisable not to be honest with you, because it causes dilution. You're going to use that money to learn, to make loads of mistakes that you could do on far less money, to be honest with you. And then when you are ready to raise, you're raising because you know you can raise 5 million and you can turn that into 20 because the formula's been proven. You know, you've got the product, you've got you've got the product market fit, you've got the growth formula, and therefore you're looking to raise. So I think that approach, I always advise people to use that approach, as painful as it is, and as painful it is to bootstrap for those years and to build a product and to get customers with no money. It definitely pays off at the longer term. I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think those relationships with investors, they take years to build, and it's got to be right, hasn't it? It's got to be the right investor. It's got to be at the right time.
That's exactly spot on. Yeah. Look, I mean, we're pretty good at being frugal.
Yeah.
We've got reasonably tight costs, and like the majority of our time, or at least when I say our, the majority of my time is just in speaking to customers and prospective customers. So yes, it would be handy to have a team of another sort of 5 salespeople. There's no question about it.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because you always have, when you are speaking to these investors, because I'm obviously in the same boat as well, we bootstrap largely. When the time is right, we'll raise big, but the time's not right yet. But, it's like every time we meet them, we're like, yeah, next year, let's meet again next year. You always have a tendency to sort of like overcook or where you think you might be in a year's time, I believe.
Have you got a sort of like a milestone set in your mind of when you're going to, really consider
Yeah,
raising?
definitely. I think the thing is that when you get to that milestone as well, you're like, well, actually, do we need to raise big? But in my mind, all the conversations we've been having, which are with not necessarily VCs, but more like private equity funders that back bootstrap businesses, we're probably looking like the 3 million ARR mark, 3 to 4 million or something. At that point, we're much more attractive, and that's capital for growth, but it's also capital for the team as well, to take capital off the table, to get cash off the table, which is something we're building as well. I think that's really important to do that too.
And the valuation will be, considerably more favourable because the risk will be lower.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything in mind yourself, like around a benchmark of when you think, do you know what, that's the point at which we'll raise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, look, we're like I said. I mean, we're speaking to investors now. For us, I think it's more around sort of number of new customers on a long-term contract basis. We'd like to get sort of 3 to 5 more before we actually before we're not just having friendly chats and there's actually an ask
Yeah.
at the end of a conversation with the investor when it's like, hey, we did X, Y, and Z. To get to this next level, we'd like this much money, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't refined my investor pitch clearly.
No. Oh, you don't need to. You don't need to. Yeah, exactly. Are you thinking VC or are you thinking another sort of route? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, one route that would be most valuable, and I think for both parties, would be a larger organization within the space that hasn't had the time, bandwidth, and maybe kind of AI has just kind of crept up on them, and it's like 3 years on.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your AI, product roadmap? And it's like, I didn't even know we had to do that. So like that kind of organization where they're quite established in the space, they have the liquidity, that would be a good fit as opposed to sort of traditional VC, because then that way, we can also look at improving operations. I mean, our big sort of selling point for an acquiring organization is just how many automations we have in our ops.
Yeah.
Which we can then introduce into product development, like refining operations within the acquiring organization as well. That's a really big selling point.
Yeah, definitely. I think with AI too, I think that we're seeing much more of that. Of people not necessarily raising the VC money and trying to buy the market and really go for it. That more so, we're going to build this technology, And then, the strategy is we're going to buy up a load of similar businesses that aren't technologically driven, and we're going to, realize the synergies by putting our technology into their business, and I think there's a lot of value there, a huge amount of value, right? I think that's a really good way of growing, to be honest with you. And maybe before that was a bit more difficult because, like we said, it was harder to build software, but with AI, I think it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, and look, randomly sat next to a very interesting lady who was sort of 65, 70, on my way to go to Italy for my dad's birthday back in Feb, and we just got to talking, and she was one of the few people that was like, "Yeah, tell me everything about AI," and I'm like, "We've got 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
Let's go." So that was me talking to her about like 2.5 hours, and she by the end of it, she was like, "Look, I'm really concerned for my nephew who's just very recently graduated, and he's concerned as well about AI. Like, what are your thoughts?" And I was like, he should be concerned. Like, there's like this is a really important thing. So
yeah,
she was like, okay, well that doesn't fill me with confidence. Can we like arrange to? Yeah, it's like what a motivational speaker you are.
yeah.
But she's like, can you what can we arrange to meet? With my nephew as well. So he came into the office with this lady about 3 weeks later, and we went through kind of like where he could place, and like at the core of what I was suggesting was to just dive into code code, start building out applications, start testing them, and then like the core thing here is to just differentiate yourself against competition. Like folks are going to be like leaders and folks that are hiring, they're going to be looking for people that have got something to show around AI. So if
Yeah.
you've got a link there, which is like, click on that link and it's just a beautiful application which does all this,
Yeah.
highfalutin stuff that you put together over a weekend. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
That's going to be really interesting, yeah.
That's a
And
good
of
move.
course, and then every other traditional style business, even like like obviously the plumbers thing comes into a lot of AI conversations, doesn't it, these days? But someone who has AI skills and capability, it can enable that plumbing business to be even better with AI when it comes to customer acquisition or operations or whatever it is. All those businesses are there, ready to go, right? Someone needs to optimize them, so it's a really exciting time, I think. It's super exciting. On the point of financial metrics or even just general metrics, you mentioned around like how many ops are automating, etc. We talked about finance and having to keep things tight. Is there one metric, financial metric, or even any to sort of just general business metric that you track regularly, and why is that? Is there anything that this is the one thing we have to make sure we're nailing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything for us really boils down to sales.
Yeah,
So like the number of closed sales, sure, very important, but then the lead up to that. So it's like number of booked meetings, more specifically. So we normally have sort of 2 to 3 sales conversations before we sort of close. Yeah. So, so then the question is, okay, well, how many meeting ones have you had? How many meeting twos? And then going a little bit further up on that, it's like, how many numbers have you dialed? Right? Like that's the question that is making me the most hated person to stand up in the morning. It's
yeah,
like, how many numbers have you dialed?
yeah.
They're like, no, but we've got this whole system. Numbers, yeah, numbers. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, getting people on the phone is the
Yeah.
key.
So that's the thing that
Yeah. So top to sales, basically, conversations with people selling your product, yeah, has to be, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, of course, there's loads of metrics you're probably tracking, but that would be the one thing that you're saying would help you achieve success right now or get you to the next level.
yeah, I mean, like we are very diligent on our budget, like our cash flow. We keep an eye on that. Like, we're watching that like a hawk. And with John's tracking kind of velocity,
Yeah.
how much is he outputting in terms of code.
Okay, yeah. So keeping on top of cash, obviously key in bootstrap business as well, isn't it? That's the thing that keeps you awake at night, for
Yeah.
sure. And what does your setup look like in terms of managing your finance for the company? Like, What do you have? How do you do it? Is it people? Is it systems? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty lean. So look, we use Stripe for payments and invoicing. Then we just sort of throw our VAT statements over the line to our accountants who picks them up. In fact, I don't think there's any throwing involved anymore. We've integrated with Zero, and they just pick it up Zero side, and that's about it really. Then they just send us an invoice, and yeah, and that's pretty much the end of our sort of finance.
Yeah, you'll find
Yeah, finance.
interaction. What about billing your customers? Do you bill them manually, or is there a system? Is it all like Stripe subscriptions, or
Yeah, spot on. So it's all on Stripe, so it's all kind of automated payment requests, invoices. They all go out through Stripe. Super handy tool. Super
yeah,
handy.
it's really good. It's a great tool, isn't it? And do you, what does that go straight from like CRM? So is it like, okay, you send a proposal to somebody, or they accept it, or how does that side of things work?
That's a good question. We haven't bothered to integrate it with HubSpot primarily because we're not a high volume business.
Yeah,
So if we have to kind of punch a few keys in like once a month or once every whatever it might be,
not a big
then
deal, is it?
that's not a big deal.
It's quite satisfying as well, isn't it? That's the satisfying side of business. It's like, oh, we closed the deal, now we can invoice them.
Yeah, it's like on the Wolf of Wall Street where Matthew McConaughey like just rings the bell.
You need to keep that manual. You can't have a robot ringing the bell, can you?
No, no, exactly. Yeah, you need that. You need that. 100%. And are you like how many are you in your team?
We're, I think, 25 at the moment, something like that.
Wonderful. So all like kind of spread out across
We are remote. Yeah, we're remote. So we've got people in a lot around in the UK. We've got a team in South Africa too. We've got a Stacey, our head of marketing, obviously, she's in Portugal. So we've got a team, some people as well in India too, helping us. So we're remote and we're all over the place, really.
yeah.
And I think that's how we'll scale too. I don't plan on going in-house and having an office in London or anything like that.
Mm.
I want it to be flexible. I want it to be remote too when I started the business. So it's been in us since day one, really. Even before COVID, we've been remote from day one.
So
We definitely try to get people together as often as we can. We
yeah.
used to have this thing where we like every month we'd get everyone together and they'd do something, like even in their local areas. So the team in Cape Town would do something, the team in Manchester would do something. So keeping on top of that's pretty important, I think. Notice the difference as well.
Yeah. And what like I mean you certainly mentioned at the start of the call. You can tell me a bit more about your product. So you know
Yeah,
as a let's say from a user's perspective, like kind of what are they experiencing? What are the
yeah.
big value adds of it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, so we built our system. I mean, fundamentally, as far as the customer's concerned, we're an accounting full stack finance solution that offers everything from bookkeeping, accounting, all the way through to CFO services. The difference is that we do it through technology. So we're sort of 50% platform, 50% team people.
And what
Yeah, please.
what do CFO services look like? Because
Uh,
I've obviously worked in companies where there was a CFO, never really had much dealings with them,
yeah.
and now we don't have a CFO. So what's
At some point, you probably will need one, right? When you start crying lost a
I'm
customer, you're
certain
like,
that we will.
what's
So
going on?
I just
Yeah,
want to, yeah, get me
how that
excited.
works.
What is coming up for us?
Yeah,
This
the
this
fun.
magical role that we're
Yeah, yeah,
in.
absolutely. Well, we have this thing we productized to start with, what we call our CFO plan, and what's included there is and this is kind of the inspiration for the business in the first place. So I worked in big companies. Then started working with small companies and realized that they get terrible service and they don't have good financial data, so they can't make the best decisions, and so they're already like hamstrung from that point of view. So could we level the playing field and bring that financial rigor around good financial data and sound counsel from a CFO and deliver that to startups? So that productized CFO plan looks like we work with the business to create we call it a business performance report. So although it's a finance type report, it brings in all of the other business metrics. And so we create a sort of a one report for the entire business that cross-pollinates finance with the business metrics and how the business is trading. So we translate numbers into real world speak, if that makes sense, into what business owners and leaders of departments would understand. And that report gets used often for board reporting as well, investor reporting, all that sort of stuff, and or iterations, variations of that report for investors and so on. So that's really the foundation of it all. And then we also build a financial model for that business as well, which I should say AI is super helpful with as well right now, like using Claude to help with financial modeling. Perfect. It just like speeds up your time massively.
Yeah.
And so building financial models for those businesses to help them always know where they are with their cash flow and where their business is performing. So, okay, a month has gone by or 3 months has gone by and we've hit our targets or we haven't. Okay, now if we reset where we are today by tweaking these assumptions and where we're going to be, what does that do to our runway? What does that do to our cash flow? When do we need to raise? Or perhaps we've got a surplus that we can reinvest more in marketing and we can grow faster or whatever it is. So along with those two things, the financial model and the report, also a kind of a meeting once a month as well with that person, the dedicated CFO on that account. And they talk them through those things and really just help them business partner them through the growth on the growth journey really.
Fantastic.
So it's very, very fractional, very productized. So that's how it starts. And then other companies then say, this is all great, but I feel like I need somebody more in-house now. I need like a 1 day a week, 2 day a week. And then we also have a network of fractional CFOs that we work with where we sort of contract that CFO in as well to run the same stuff, but more in the business, if that makes sense, rather than sort of as a productized service.
Got it. I mean, that's amazing because there's so many overlaps and it feels as though our two businesses are sort of running in parallel. 'Cause I mean,
Yeah,
the aim for both of our businesses is to help our clients grow. It's to help our clients grow
exactly.
steadily, right?
Absolutely.
The angles are slightly different where we're looking deeper at sort of customer data and you're looking deeper on obviously the financial data. But I love the fact that you kind of you get your hands dirty, you do the modeling, right? And
So
you
important.
do sort of bring those metrics up to light. Do we need to
Yeah,
raise, like you said? It's
yeah.
we have any surplus cash, which is always nice
Yeah.
to hear.
That'd be a nice problem to have.
Yeah, I've not had that phone call in a
No,
while.
no. You usually each other around. It's like, oh shit, we thought we had 12 months of runway. Now we've only got 9. What can we
Yeah,
do? Okay,
exactly.
we need to tweak costs here, tweak costs there.
Yeah,
That's the typical. But yeah, it's for those, it's for those teams that don't necessarily have a finance background or don't know how to run a financial model too.
yes.
It's super helpful to have that.
And actually, that's such an important point. So, like a big thing of what AI has done, or in any case, sort of good consultants, right? Like they help folks that aren't from that world understand it as if they were.
Yes.
That's the super value add, right? So you know your space so well that if you were to have a conversation with my mum,
Yeah.
you'd be able to bring a do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll be able to kind of get her to
Yeah.
understand,
What
these
it
sort of
is.
complex concepts. And that's a real big value add, whether it be, administered by a person, an expert such as yourself, or technology,
With.
which is where you guys have got, both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, I don't know. I would never say always because that's you can't definitely can't say always these days. But for a period of time, there's going to be a need for somebody to know how to interact with the AI, right? To some extent, or to know what to
Well,
ask it, how to, all that, the prompts, all that sort of stuff. Key.
yeah, that's kind of banking on that. Yeah.
And without that, we're probably all screwed, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming off my high horse real quick in this call. It's like, whoa, all of the jobs are gonna go, and then I get the call. It's just like, yeah, Mark, you're sacked.
Yeah, it's by one of your agents. Yeah, we don't
Sorry,
need
yeah,
it.
we've got Marco AI now. But
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is, yes, so absolutely having somebody that can be that sort of stepping stone, or let's say on ramp,
Yeah,
so to speak, right? To not just, here's ChatGPT, right? Like it's much wider than that, right? But the big thing that I strongly believe won't change is the human element, so the human touch, right? And there's going to be, key sort of select players which do have those relationships or are able to build those relationships and then can demonstrate value, whether it be from in terms of a sales capacity, in terms of a marketing capacity, or finance capacity. It's the people that are able to articulate their knowledge correctly and be able to connect with their customers. Those are that's what I like to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just practicing my English here. Just gonna, read a few more Harry Potter books and see.
True though. Yeah, that's the plan, isn't it? I think that'll be the case, and then we're going to go with that for now anyway, aren't we? So
Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna hold on to that for a bit.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. But anyway, I talked a lot about the CFO stuff, but to be honest with you, I think I'm glad you've got a good setup. You mentioned you've integrated with Zero and stuff like that. I'm very strongly believe in, like I said, I became that fractional CFO years ago, but I couldn't do that role because I didn't have good quality financial data. And that all ties back to the boring stuff, really, which is the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping is the foundation for the whole thing. You can't do the CFO work. There's no point trying to prepare that business performance report or the financial model if you don't have really good quality financial data that underpins everything, really. So
Yeah,
that's so key, and that's really what our platform does too. It automates that, so it integrates with tools like Zero and Stripe and everything else, and removes the need for not in full, but it sort of elevates the human, if you like. So they're not having to press OK in Zero and reconcile things and type data in here, there, and everywhere. The
yeah,
system kind of does that for them, and they can oversee it and review the output. And we've managed to get to the point now with a lot of our clients who are sort of 85% automated or something, which is amazing. I think that's
that's incredible.
incredible.
Yeah,
I think we can get to 100%, but that's going to be the hard part, is getting from 85 to 100, I think.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's like the finance stuff and the accounting stuff is just something that you want it to just work in the
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
right? When even something as simple as like having to go to my platform or like my banking app and then like download the reports and then
Yeah.
attach it. I know sounds like real petty first world
It's
problems,
annoying, isn't it?
but
Yeah.
it is annoying, especially if you multiply it out by any number of systems.
Exactly.
Like a big, I realized that big chunk of my life was actually dedicated to just extracting information from one
Great.
place and then doing something very quick and then putting it into another place.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just moving data around. And now
Yeah.
we've like I'm using Claude Code and I've integrated it with pretty much everything, email, call
Great.
transcripts, file system, Google
Yeah.
Drive, entire Google ecosystem. And now it's like, hey, Graham just sent me this email. Can you just grab that attachment, chuck it into the vault, please, wherever you see fit? You know, do a check. Can you give me like a 3 bullet summary of what Graham wants from me, and then let's just send a reply out. So just very simple loop. But there's a really cool thing. Like when I press enter on that, and then the agent goes off and does those things, I then just put that to one side, open up another agent, and it's like then I can do something else. So
Yes.
then like that's then I can just close that off when it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm ready, I'm done.
That's awesome. And have you managed to get an agent to do some of those? Are there any tasks, finance related, that you've like, shit, the agent just can't do that yet, and that's annoying. I've got to do that manually.
So at the moment, I'm building an application that does the financial modeling. So it's a web app, but it's sort of scenario based financial modeling. And I'm not a financial modeling expert by any stretch,
Yeah.
but I kind of just told it what I wanted, iterated on it a little bit. So now there's classic your chat in there and you're having a conversation with it. It's not a million miles off. Like I think it's called Claude in spreadsheets.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so it's just a repeat of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm planning for this application, and then I'm thinking of how we can incorporate that into Senis AI. So the first like the normal the normal course of action is I normally come up with some harebrained idea, but I don't share it with anyone because I'm always like getting kind of lambasted. It's just like, do some actual work, Mark. I'm
Yeah,
like,
stop doing this.
how do you think we built? I'm like, where do you think the ideas came from to build this damn thing in the first place, right? So anyway, so I'm there just like tinkering away. But the value of this is in my mind when folks that haven't really dabbled in AI, they're like, I really need to do something with AI. I know I need to do something, I just don't know what it is. Yes, it's a knowledge problem, but it's also a focus problem.
Yeah,
So instead of like doing all of this, we just put a handful of buttons here, preloaded prompts, then you've got this page, which is, you know, your model. Then you haven't got to go to your spreadsheet. You don't have to go to CRM
yeah,
to go and check your pipeline. It's all just within that platform. So
yeah.
that's what I'm thinking with at the moment.
Yeah, so you're using all the time you're supposed to be acquiring customers, building little apps. But that's good. You're right. That's what you've got to do, isn't it? You've got to,
Exactly. That's it. Which is funny enough, like how I spent most of the beginning part of my career when I should have been working, I was tinkering and building stuff instead.
yeah, yeah. Same for me, and I think that's why this business I'm building now is feels like my calling, to be honest with you. Because since day one, although I went into accounting, which doesn't sound very fun, I remember sitting down next to this woman on day one, and she was showing me how to do it. This was 20 years ago, wasn't it? Right, so different technology wise, but it was like, yeah. So what I do, this is the job. You're going to print this off, and then I'm going to get my highlighter out. I'm going to mark. I'm going to look on the screen, and when I see it, I'm going to mark it off on this. Get the highlighter. And I thought, well, I'm going to do this once like this, and I'm never going to do it ever again. And since then, I've just been looking at how I can automate different tasks in that space, really. And so when AI came along, it's like, well, we can automate the whole thing
Whole
without the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's quite exciting, to be honest with you, especially for someone like you and I who like to do this sort of stuff. It's a
Yeah.
really exciting time.
I mean, it's great that you look at a task with through the lens of how can I introduce AI into this, right? That's a really powerful skill, and that's something that is so valuable now and for the foreseeable future because somebody can have a conversation with you, come at you and say, "Hey, I want to do this AI stuff, but I just don't know." And they'll come away from a conversation with you that much wiser, that much.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is great, isn't it? I think the challenging part is that's great. You can do that. Then making that into a product is the hard part, isn't it? That's the real tough part. And making it polished and making it something that people like to use and works all the time for them and stuff. That's the
Less,
hard part, really.
considerably less so than you might think, which then, like, to maybe some concluding thoughts here, like, it kind of begs the question, how much, like, where is the actual value of a SaaS business?
Yeah.
Because it used to be in the actual technology itself. It's like
You,
proprietary stuff. Like, and my dad was he had his business, about I want to say sort of 40 odd years ago, and he used to manufacture ties in his lab, and it was doing really well. He would then sell them to the sort of local stores, shops like just nearby. But then the Chinese came and they did a remarkable job of copying that exact tie and then selling it at a tenth of the price. And my dad was like, "Nah, the Italians they will never compromise on
yeah,
quality." Boy, did they compromise. So it's the same sort of principle here. Like, the AI not only can do it faster and cheaper, but it can also arguably do it considerably better than.
yeah. The quality's better. The quality's way better, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so are you packaging it into a web app at the moment? All of this stuff, basically, effectively.
Yeah,
And then,
it's what I know. I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, it'll always be on web apps. So what I normally do is I get it to a point where I think it's absolutely ready to go.
yeah.
And then I give it to like a real developer that actually knows how to, like, and so now it's currently with John. So I've sent him a couple of apps.
Right.
So yeah, he's gonna have a little tinker around with that.
Yeah,
And
cool.
we're just gonna we'll do some demos over the course of the next couple of weeks just to get some feelers,
Yeah.
see if this stuff is valuable.
Yeah, amazing. Do you think at some point it's going to be like voice rather than interacting with the web app? Maybe you just like speak through your AirPods or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I already speak with most of my technology through voice. So
Yeah.
I use Whisper Flow, for example. That's really good, text.
I haven't seen that one yet. I have to check it out.
And I use Speechify. It's funny. So Hugh, one of my co-founders. So he and I started using Whisperflow a few months back, and then John just couldn't wrap his head around how like quickly we were typing. When we weren't typing, we were just speaking.
Yeah.
So he asked us about it, and now I get these massive walls of text from John because it's just him. And I'm like,
Way too much.
I was like, I see your speech
Yeah.
to text, and I raise you my text to speech. So now I use
Yeah,
speech.
exactly.
I just then ingest it into that, and I just listen to, like a sexy female version voice.
Oh god,
Marco,
makes it more interesting.
we really need to launch tomorrow. It's like, served you right for giving me that wall of text.
Yeah, exactly. That's a classic. Like you could have just sent each other a voice note, but now you've gone down around the houses.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Funny there. Yeah. Awesome. Actually, one other question I had for you, because I just want to pick your brains on it, because I'm not sure where the world goes here, to be honest with you. But obviously, it gets quite expensive, right? Interacting with all of these APIs, right? These mainstream models and stuff. How are you thinking about pricing going forward? Because obviously your typical SaaS business is very much like we built this software and you can basically license it from us for X amount per month. Pricing's got to look a bit different now, I guess, hasn't it? When it comes to this sort of product.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
Or not?
interesting you mentioned about pricing. So again, outside of Senis, I started using OpenClaw and really excited about it. And then a week later, I got slapped with a massive bill.
Yeah.
So and yeah, much to the horror of my co-founders. But as an example, Claude Code, you can use that technology within your subscription. So I just pay like the sort of the Pro Max thing of like, like I just upgraded now from like the £70 a month one to the 150, but I absolutely hammer it. Like you can get away with using the £20 a month one just fine, and that way you don't have to use APIs. That said, for Senis AI, we do go through APIs, and with agents coming into play, particularly when if agents have conversations with each other as well, every conversation between agents, that can grow quite exponentially. So, at the moment we don't charge based on usage, but that might need
That
to
might
be,
change in the future.
it might need to be baked in. It's kind of like a shipping fee type thing.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah. I'm not sure either exactly what we do there, to be honest with you. Whether it becomes called a transaction, a usage-based pricing or subscription, but yeah,
Well,
super.
we price based on value. Like that's the core thing for us. So
Yeah.
we go through a series of exercises with our existing clients, prospective clients, in order to make sure that we come in at a marginal fraction of the size of the opportunity. So then it's like, here's the size of the opportunity that we're looking to capture with this technology within this time frame. And by the way, here's a guarantee. So then we take the risk on. So it's like, it's less really about, is it, 10.99 a month? It's like, like
This
it's
is value you're delivering.
in those terms, because also we work really, really closely with our clients. So that's why the final frontier for us and our clients is the partnership model. So that's kind of where we get to. And much like you were saying, it's about nurturing that relationship, operating on a strategic plane. And we, like yourselves, you're so close to the data, if something happens, you guys are going to be the first to know, like we're going to be the first to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And so having that, that's what the value is. So then the other question is, if you've managed to, like not crash into a wall that ends up costing you, $100,000, like
Yeah.
then the question was how much is that worth? Right? So,
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Marco. Really great to chat to you. Yeah, really enjoyed the conversation, and we should definitely catch up again in future. Love to
yeah.
grab a coffee or something, share ideas on AI.
Hello, noise. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.